Hey y'all. So I'm sharing today 3 things that people are missing about raising money for their nonprofits. So I'm talking all month about fundraising, how to raise money, how to prepare yourself for raising money for your nonprofit, especially as we're entering into the fall and especially as we're entering into the giving season coming up. I want to get you ready, right? So, if you're a nonprofit founder and you just need advice, encouragement, and you need to figure out what you're missing, what you may not be paying enough attention to, this is the video for you. Oh my God. All right. So, if you don't know me, my name is Tiffany. I created a business called Boss on a Budget because I wanted to help people learn how to start and get the information that a lot of people hold back. There's a lot of people out here who know certain things or they have the knowledge or they have the experience and they don't like sharing that information. And I was looking for that information in 2014 and I couldn't find like how do you literally raise money from $0? Like I may know how to do it when you got the momentum going, but what happens when you're literally starting with nothing? And there was not much out there. So that's why I created Boss on a Budget. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. You know what to do. Introduce yourselves, say hello. You have no idea who's watching. You have no idea who may be interested and want to pour seeds into your organization, who wants to support you. So you need to leave seeds. Everywhere you go, drop seeds about who you are, what you do, and more importantly, who you help and what's going to change as a result of the work that you're doing right now. So, do I have a deal, y'all? Can y'all please drop in the comments who you are, where you're from, and the organization that you work with, and what you do, right? Because we want to know who you help. There's some people out here who really need help. All right, y'all. So, really quickly, I'm gonna do quick announcements before I jump into the topic for the night. Hey, Packs of Love. I saw your email yesterday. Thank you for emailing me. Hey, Cheryl, APP Society member. Good to see you. Cheryl's going to be on here pretty soon sharing her story. So I'm going to, hey, Harriet, good to see you too. Another APP member. All right, y'all. So one quick announcement. The APP Society is it's like an accountability group for nonprofit founders who need their people. They need to find people who are doing the things they're doing in the moment, raising money. They need advice, they need help, they need training. That is my private membership. So a lot of people ask, well, how can I work with you, Tiffany? Right now, on an ongoing basis, that's really the only way you can work with me and hear from me every week. So if you're interested in joining APP, I'm dropping the link in the chat on YouTube and Facebook. Instagram, you can DM me if you need it. And the doors are closing July 31st. We have 10 days left. So if you want to do that, make sure you join and you can come and leave at any time. But it doesn't matter if you leave, if you come and you stay for 2 months, you're still part of the APP family. I'm still praying for y'all. I'm still want to still encourage you, still want to be there for you. Let's just support and help each other. Hey, Shauna. All right, y'all. So here are the things that you may be missing in your fundraising journey as a nonprofit founder. All right. So this is the first thing. Every time I talk about a fundraising strategy or what you should be doing, hey, Jackson, or what you should be doing for your nonprofit, I'm going to always bring this up. So if you've heard me before, this isn't a surprise, this first one. Peer to peer. I'm going to break that down and explain what that is for people who don't know that. And also, y'all, I'm teaching tonight. So when I have a pencil or a pen nearby, that means that you should have a pencil or a pen and you should be writing notes, right? I like to be a little entertaining. And have a little drama. But we're still going to learn. So we learn it tonight. So peer-to-peer fundraising is a strategy where you get other people to raise money for you at a very basic level. Some people get caught up on that because they're like, well, if I do peer to peer, it has to be exactly like this, exactly how this person tells me to do it. But at its simplest level, all peer to peer fundraising is other people asking people they know to donate to you. And any form that needs to take, that's the form that it takes. Now, the reason why I keep talking about peer to peer is because if you want to ask me how nonprofits are literally making it right now, the nonprofits that are able to make money and able to sustain when the economy is not doing the best and things are all over the place, Lord, as if it couldn't get any worse or more unstable, here we are in 2024. But literally, you ask me like how people are making it in nonprofits. Peer to peer is fueling a lot of the growth and stability for nonprofits. So you need to be thinking about the people who would be energized and happy to spread your message and raise money on your behalf. And if you don't have, which if the next thing you say to yourself is, I don't have those people, I don't know who would even think about asking on my behalf to raise money. I can barely get people to donate. So how can I get people to ask for donations? So if is that you? Are you asking me that? Then my advice to you is to cultivate experiences where people get to know you, where people fall in love with the work that you do, that people see the importance of your work firsthand, where you're having those one on one conversations with them. And then when those people have those relationships with you, then they are prime, not prime examples or prime candidates. That's the word I'm thinking of people who can help spread it. Because when somebody hears good news, a lot of those people want to spread the good news. So when somebody hears that something is happening in the community that they didn't realize was going on, and oh, did you know this was happening and they care about it? Then some of those people would be so willing to then tell their folks, their family, their friends, their coworkers to support you. But you got to remember that this is not about your organization. And you're going to be like, what, Tiffany? You're tripping. It is about my organization. I need money. What are you talking about? What I mean is, it's so much bigger than your organization because the problem that you're solving and addressing is going to exist even after you're gone. And some people don't like to hear me say that because they're like, well, the point of a nonprofit is to make sure it never happens again. For the vast majority of y'all, the things that you're tackling are going to be there even when you're not physically here. So, what you're trying to get people excited about is not about the limitation of your organization. It's about addressing the issue overall. There's an issue here. Let's take Cheryl. She's in Chester County in Pennsylvania. There are people who are hardworking people who still can't afford food, who can't afford clothes, who can barely afford their rent, but they're working. They're doing the thing they thought they were supposed to do, but for whatever reason, they can't afford it, right? She's stepping in the gap, right? Because she's literally the Gap Coalition. But she's doing something to address what's happening in Chester County. So she shouldn't be mobilizing people about her organization. She should be mobilizing people about supporting their neighbors. Because that's what people care about. They care about their neighbors. They care about people. They care about making sure people don't suffer, that children don't suffer, that families don't suffer. And if they hear and see that somebody's doing something positive, then their natural reaction is, how can I help? Hey, Darby, another APP member in the house. Hey, Vic. Hey, Joseph. How can I help? So the challenge for you is to figure out how to curate experiences, create experiences, interactions, relationships with people where the question they ask you is, how can I help? Because there's a section of those people, there's a portion of those people who will raise money for you, who will do a project for you. Oh, you need $1,500 for this thing for your organization? Oh, we can do that. Oh, my church would love to support you. Oh, my family can help you do that. How many people of you, how many examples in your life of like instances where that has happened can you think of? Many, many examples of people who are like, I want to help. Hey, Eric, it's good to see you on the live. I gotta give you an air horn. Bah, 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 bah. While I'm waiting. Hey, Eric from Homeowner Prep. I'll make sure I get it right. Right. So, what I need you to think about is like the key to you raising money is not you. It's not how much you can raise, because there's a point that comes where it has to be bigger than just what you can do. You have to be thinking about the people who can be your ambassadors in other places, the people who can speak for you in other places. So you need to be building up a community of people who will be willing to do that. And people are willing to do that when they feel a connection to the mission, when they feel a connection to the work, when they see it and they're impressed by the work, when they hear you speak and they're like, I didn't realize this was a problem. What can I do? So this is the thing I think that people miss about fundraising, because in their one track mind, they think I need to set up a page or just ask people, and then I need to just give it to them and then wait for the money to come. But the success that you're going to see with your organization is through the relationships you make and how you make people feel. So, how are you creating those one on one experiences? How are you creating those connections with people so they can see the realness of the work that you do and they can feel the importance of it? Right. So, there are people, I'm going to use Veronica because I like to use real examples of people I've worked with. Veronica has Victory for Families. She's always on here. She's probably busy today, but the name of her organization is Victory for Families, and she supports single moms who want to help their children's educational futures, and she provides financial literacy support for single moms, right? And she's in Massachusetts. So she does financial literacy. So naturally, she wants to develop relationships with banks, because especially credit unions, they care about the financial literacy of their community members. They want people to have resources to be able to use their products and services. That's an alignment there. So she should be thinking about, and she does this, how those banks can develop relationships and see the work that she's doing with their literal customers. They care about the experience of their customers. That's their job. She can connect them to the customers through her workshops so they can see the work and they become invested in the work. And then they say, I actually want to help. I actually love what you're doing and I want to step in and help. It's through those kinds of interactions that people begin to stand up for you, that people begin to speak on your behalf. That's your goal. You're trying to get a group of people to speak on your behalf and raise money on your behalf, create opportunities for you, provide the avenues for you to get money. Does this make sense, y'all? Cheryl said, my husband spoke at a church last month, and I got up and spoke about our nonprofit, and they asked us to come back today because they had a large donation of household and personal care items. Yes, it's the connections to the work. And that's a seed. That's the start of a relationship. And Cheryl didn't even ask for that. Cheryl talked about what she does. She developed and cultivated relationships. She spoke to those people. She didn't necessarily ask for that. They just told her, based on what they know she does, that they want to help and she should come to the church. Right? That's how you make money. That's how resources come, through those kinds of relationships. All right? I see a good question. I'm gonna answer that a little bit later. So that's number one. You really need to invest in peer-to-peer strategies. And if you feel like you're in a place where you don't have enough people who can raise money on your behalf, then your strategy needs to become, how can I cultivate relationships with people where they would want to do that? And what are the interactions that I can create? What are the experiences that I can create so that they develop a connection to the mission? And some of that may be you making presentations or talking about your work. That may be networking. We talk about that a lot with Cheryl. She's going to share that next week, but she's a master at networking. So she's going to events, she's introducing herself. She doesn't walk away from an event without talking to somebody new, because she knows that eventually that's going to come back to her. There are people who are now speaking her name that don't even know her, because she was able to create those experiences and connections with folks. Make sense? Jackson says, do we have to hire or pay them to raise money on the nonprofit's behalf? The strategies that I'm talking about, no. So these are volunteers and people who, a lot of them are donors themselves, who want to ask on your behalf. So it could be just as simple as somebody saying, you know what? My family usually does a service project every year, and our service project wants to be, this year we want to raise $1,000 for your organization. So we're going to ask all of our people that we know to give, and we're going to give you a donation of $1,000. That's what I mean by peer-to-peer. It could be that simple, and it can be very sophisticated, where you're giving people technology and you're running the campaign. And that's what I have experience in. But it doesn't have to be that detailed. It could just literally be you telling people we need money for this project, and they're like, okay, let me ask 5 of my friends who I know who could donate. So that goes to number 2. Drop number 2 in the chat. Drop number 2 in the chat. And Ethel, I will answer your question after number 2. So I want you to know. I'll answer that. But also, thank you, Danger Aware, for reminding me. If you are enjoying this information, please like and share. And if you know somebody who needs this, tag them in it. They need to hear this tonight. You don't never know what you're going to get. You never know what I'm going to say on these lives. So I'm just letting you know now. Tag somebody, because they may get something that they need. Okay. Number 2 thing you may be missing out on with fundraising: major donors. We got to talk about this, y'all. So when I say major donors, what do you think I mean? Because when I say major donors, I essentially mean, look at me asking the question and not waiting for the answer like I always do. What I essentially mean is that there are people who are going to give larger in proportion to what you normally get. There are people who give larger gifts. So for you, that may be 500. For other people, that may be 5,000. And these are individuals. These could be organizations, but I'm talking about individuals right now. It could be a $10,000 gift or a $20,000 gift. And there's a lot of education in the nonprofit space that says most of your donations are going to come from a small amount of people. So if a small amount of people are supporting your organization through donations, then a lot of those people have to be giving major gifts. And a lot of ways that people scale or they move up in their budget is by attracting people who can give larger gifts. I'm going to give a really important caveat. I wholeheartedly believe in grassroots strategies. Grassroots strategies just means people who are of the community, people who are typically on the ground. I believe in small gifts. I believe that a bunch of people giving $5 matters. A bunch of people giving $25 matters. So when I say this, please know that I'm not shaming small gifts. We need all the gifts, small and large. But relatively speaking, I believe that a lot of people who start nonprofits don't go after major donors. And I'm just going to guess that a lot of people the reason why they don't go after major donors is probably because they feel like they don't know any people with that amount of money, or maybe they're afraid to ask. How can you go into a room and ask somebody for $10,000? You know, like the pressure of asking for that much money, like what? So I believe a lot of times this is being missed because most people who are starting nonprofits, I would venture to say, have just never been in that kind of situation where they're going to ask for that money, or if it feels or seems appropriate to ask for that money. And I'm going to say it's absolutely appropriate to ask for that, because I'm sure it's going to cost 10,000 or more to do the work you need to do. I'm sure it's going to cost way more than that. And there are people who have access to those kind of resources, who give that kind of money on a regular basis. But the problem may be you don't have access to those people. One of the biggest issues with nonprofits and funding is access. Somebody say access. How do you get to people who even have that kind of money to drop? How do you get to people who have that kind of money to drop? My advice is you go to those people, because naturally, if you were going to meet those people, you would naturally meet them in your regular interactions. But that's not going to normally happen for you. So you have to create the environment where you can meet those people. You have to create the environment. You have to create the circumstances. You have to go to those people. So if you're not at your local chamber of commerce events, if you're not at your local nonprofit association events, at the local community foundation events, if you're not at other local foundation events, if you're not at city council meetings, if you're not at important galas or presentations, then my question to you is, how would you meet people who normally give in those circumstances and who normally give those amounts? So are you putting yourself in position to meet those people? Because that's the first part. The first part is position. The second part is the actual ask. So you got to position yourself, but then you got to make the ask, right? And making the ask means that you have to be comfortable and feel like you can ask, because you can, right? Now you need to create the environment. You can't just go up to somebody who you believe is rich and say, hey, you got $10,000? Because I got something you can spend it on. I got something you can spend it on right now. You got $15,000? You need it? Because I could use it. I'm sorry. I crack myself up. So I'm not saying that that's how you do it, but when you meet those people and you develop relationships with them, you do follow-ups with them. You meet with them in their offices, or you meet with them to share more information about what you're doing. When you feel confident enough to even have those conversations, because let me tell you something, money or perceived power don't make anybody smarter than you or better than you. Y'all know I believe this. I say this all the time. Money or perceived power does not make anybody better or smarter than you. Okay? So you got to be in the space where you believe so much in the work that you do that you can talk to anybody, whether they got $1 million or whether they have $1. And that's how you have to approach it. You have to be willing and ready to talk about the need, and you have to be confident in knowing we can address this need. There's something missing right now in our community, or this is something that we need. This needs to get done, and we have the tools to get it done. And you have to talk in those ways, right? You can't talk saying, well, we're just really small, so we're not sure if we can do it, but because we're just getting started. That's not going to work. So you got to position yourself to be in those rooms, but you also got to approach the ask with the confidence you need, knowing that the money will come, and knowing that there's somebody out there who is willing to put their money behind their desires to help, right? And by making those relationships and being in proximity to people who have access to more financial resources, you naturally create more opportunities to ask, because more people know about the work that you're doing. More people are interested in the work that you're doing. More people are interested in you as a person and want to get to know you as a person. More people are willing to go to lunch with you and talk more about what you do and hear more. More people would be interested in introducing you to somebody they know who may care about the work that you're doing. But if you're sitting at home and wishing and hoping that you put out a request on Facebook that somebody will give, that's not going to get you to where you're trying to go. You gotta position yourself to ask for major money. And whatever major means for you, I need you to think bigger. 500, 5,000, 50,000. And I'm talking about from individuals. My next point is for the grant funders, for the foundations. I'm coming down that street, but I'm really talking about individuals. There are people in your community who have access to thousands of dollars, who have friends who have access to thousands of dollars. And some of that money is designated for charity. And because they don't know you, they have no opportunity to help you. Because they don't know you, they have no opportunity to support you. How else are they going to know you, y'all? How else are they going to know you? Unless you position yourself and put yourself in the rooms where you need to be, and then have the confidence to ask, have the confidence to approach, have the confidence to share what you're doing and why it's so important. You can't go into those rooms thinking that you're not enough. You are enough. You wouldn't be here if you weren't enough. You would not be here if you weren't enough. You made it this far. That's saying a whole lot. So I see a couple questions. Okay, I'm gonna go back to Ethel's question. This is a really interesting one. Good evening. How do you think funding for nonprofit will change if Trump gets into office? So I appreciate Danger Aware saying, we don't want to talk about politics here. It's not the place for it. I appreciate that. But it does have an impact on some things. So I'm just going to share the impact, and I'm not going to get too partisan or whatever, because the whole election is a whole mess. Let me just say this. And as a nonprofit, you do have to be engaged in the political process. You can't do a significant amount of lobbying, and you can't endorse candidates as a nonprofit. But who's in office really does have an impact on your services and what happens in your local areas, especially. So it's important to pay attention to it. So I would say that the biggest impact I've seen with changes in administrations, because it's not just about Trump, it's about any administration change. Every time there's an administration change, that administration has a different focus. So the laws that come out will reflect a lot of times who's in power or who has the levers in power, right? So a lot of federal money is dictated by law. So if a law favors a kind of practice, then money is going to go towards that practice. Let me give you an example. When the second George Bush, is it W4? I can't remember. But the second George Bush, the one that ran in 2000, when he was in office, he was really big on faith-based organizations. There was a whole office created for faith-based organizations, and there's federal money made available for that because that was the focus of the administration. Now, that shifted, right? So if you hang all of your hats on one source or hang all of your hats on one action that happens at the federal level, then you're going to be up the creek. You need to be thinking about other ways to make money, but you also need to be thinking about what's happening around you and what you can leverage and what are the opportunities. So I would be thinking about whoever's going to be in office next year. What are the things they favor? What are the things their staffers or the people in Congress, because that matters even more because they're making the laws. Like the people who are being elected to Congress, what are the things that they're most focused on and what are their priorities? And I would be thinking about being in the offices of your senators. You should be in the offices of your senators, of your representatives. You need to be talking to their staffers. You need to be sharing information with them because guess what? They work for you. And they need to know what's happening for you. It doesn't matter how they align with the parties. They should know. Like they should know what's happening and they need to hear from you because they use that information and they feed it back in their lawmaking processes to make decisions, especially when it comes to social services. I can't speak a lot, to like military stuff or transportation or energy. My field is social services. So I can just speak from my experience that there's staffers who work, um, around like making decisions for social programs that really need to hear from you because they're making decisions every day about where federal money goes. And whether you realize it or not, there's a lot of federal money that flows to the states that can be given to you. If you don't know about it, then you can't access it. So I'm glad you asked that question, Ethel. I'm going to circle back to the actual question, but I just wanted to say one thing you may be missing is like understanding how all of that, all of what happens in the political arena really does impact your funding, but it's one piece of the puzzle. So I believe that um, it just depends. So some people believe that, with the tax changes when Trump was in office before, lessened people's giving. I don't necessarily believe that, but we'll see what the data say, right? And that impacts nonprofits because if people give less, there's less money to go around overall. I don't believe that though. But then there are certain decisions that are made that impacted the economy. And now because the economy's in the, having a downturn, that has impacted how people give. That has impacted people's actions. So there are some things you can't predict. You really can't. But the bigger picture is you need to know what's happening. You can't afford to be absent from the process. You got to know who your elected officials are. You need to know what their priorities are, what they favor, what they're writing into these laws, what money they're releasing. You should know that because that's opportunities for you. They're opportunities for you. Okay. So there are a couple. I hope I answered that question. I really do. I really hope I answered your question, Ethel. If I didn't, let me know. Let's see another question. I just want to. I'm gonna put some comments on here before I do number 3. Can I do that, y'all? Can you give me a little chance to share what everybody else is saying? Because we building together in the chat. Eric said, largest donation we received last year was $3,500 from a board member. Now we are working on a $4,000 corporate sponsorship with Bank of America. Our goal is to keep growing our major gifts every year. Okay. That's what I need. I need a snapping sound. And he said, one day we will receive a $1 million gift, speaking it into existence. That is absolutely possible. Absolutely possible. And it will happen. Ethel says, I am waiting for my 501c3 to be completed before looking for funding. Would you agree with this strategy? No, not necessarily. So the rules differ based on where you are, right? So if you're in a state that you register, you have to register to ask for money in most states. So you need to research the rules in your state or research the rules in the state where your donors and your funders reside, right? And then you got to do that first. Then when you're clear there, you should be outlining like how you're going to raise money. You should be developing those relationships now because funding is not just about writing the proposal or asking. It's about the ramp up too, like everything you're doing before then. So you could be planting those seeds right now. You could be meeting people right now, preparing them. You should be thinking about like how much you need and what you're going to ask for and where it's going to be used. You should be developing those plans right now. I would not wait. I would not wait at all. And one more question before I go to number 3, and then I'll circle back to the other questions. Vic says, hi, Tiffany. Hello, Vic. My wife and I are starting a traditional living home, but we don't have a 501c3 as of yet. How do we go about getting that started? So I did a live about a month and a half ago. Vic, if you email me at info@bossandthebudget.com, I'll send you the link. I can't remember the name of it, but I had a guest on and she talked about how she started renting homes and she started doing group homes for folks in California. So she provided some tips on that live. But I would meet other people in your space who are doing that kind of work and actually, talk to them and get advice from them too. But I will link that live for you. Oh, one more comment before I go to number 3. Currently reading a book that I heavily recommend to nonprofit founders and fundraisers called Cause Selling the Sanford Way. Cause Selling the Sanford Way. All right. That was recommended by Eric. Okay, so let me go to number 3, and then I'll circle back to answer questions. Deal? Y'all still with me? Put a number 3 in the chat. I see you, Real Credit Champs, in the chat. Y'all check out Real Credit Champs for help with your business funding and credit repair needs. We also did a live with them a couple weeks ago, so you can check that out, Real Credit Champs. But drop number 3 in the chat. This is the third thing you are missing that really is a pet peeve of mine. And it is relationships with grant funders. Relationships with grant funders. How many of y'all want a grant? How many of y'all want a $5,000 grant or a $50,000 grant? Most people that I talk to, that's what they want. They want a grant. Like, give me the money. Sign me up. What's the proposal? I got to write something up? Okay, I don't want to write, but I'll figure it out because I want a grant. Because most people think that the path to success is through a grant, especially when you're new. But then when you start figuring out the process and you see how hard it is to get their attention and how hard it is for them to trust you to give money, then you start rethinking that thing because it's like, I thought that that's all I needed was a grant. Like, why don't I have a grant? Like, why aren't they giving me the grant? Right? So this is like one of the major things that people miss when it comes to grant funding. It is, oh, that was lightning. Sorry, y'all. It's the opportunity to develop relationships with grant funders. When I say grant funders, a lot of times I'm mostly talking about foundations, but it's not only foundations. It's corporations and it's government agencies too. But there are so many missed opportunities for you to get to know and to meet grant funders, especially your local foundations, because a lot of your local foundations want to know what's happening in the local area. They want to be connected to the people who are doing the work and often don't know where to find you or how to find you. And imagine you sitting here in your seat, wanting to get money, wanting to be discovered, and realizing that there are people out there looking for you and you had no idea. No idea. And I'm talking from a very specific experience because I have worked with national foundations for years. And the question when something comes up and they're like, who's doing this work around the country? They don't know how to find you. They don't know. When they want to find you, when they're looking for people, because most foundations go to you. They don't want you to come to them. They don't have like an open process, right? They want to discover you. When you're applying, that's what I mean. When you're applying for money, they don't know where to find you. So they go to the usual suspects. They go to the people who are the loudest. They go to the people who are savvy at talking about their work. They go to the people who are just known in the industry or known in the community. And that's what they lean on, right? Have you ever noticed how a lot of the bigger organizations keep getting money over and over again? It's because the foundations know them and have relationships with them. And imagine if you decided to have those relationships. Imagine if you started to talk to those foundations to talk about how you can work together or to ask advice about how to get funding to address a program that you're trying to start, right? Imagine if you just had those normal conversations with grant funders, which are possible. There are grant funders who will talk to you, right? Imagine if you had those conversations, how it would change your strategy. There, and this is how simple it could be. I was having a conversation with a grant funder, and she said, you know, I was telling her, yeah, I'll support, grant nonprofits. I provide coaching. I help. I was going out to her to develop a tighter relationship with her. I had worked with her in one capacity, but I was sharing that I was doing these other things. And she was like, you know what? There's a nonprofit in my area that really needs support. They're small. We believe in their work. We're not yet ready to fund them at this level, but we want to support them. And through that conversation, she said, I'll I'll pay you to help them. I'll pay you. I'll provide support for you to help them get to that level where they can ask for more money. This is a foundation. This is the executive director of a foundation telling me this, right? So, what's the moral of the story? The moral of the story is their job is to fund you. Their job is to find the people who need to be funded. So, what are you doing to be found? What are you doing to develop those relationships with them? And it's not much different than what I talked about with your major donors. There are people who work for foundations that show up at meetings, that are a part of boards, that speak on panels, that are interviewed, right? So ask yourself, how can I get in front of these people at these foundations? Your number one stop has to be your community foundation. It's not an option. It has to be your community foundation. You got to talk to them. Got to. But there are other foundations in your area that your community foundation knows about. So you could go to your community foundation and ask for advice. Maybe you're not in a position to be funded yet. And a lot of times, new nonprofits are in those positions. They're just not ready. But that's a perfect place to be because they're going to give you advice and tell you what to do to be ready. They're going to tell you, oh, we'll talk to these people or get information here or this is what you need in order to be ready. Because a lot of times foundations will tell you how to apply. I wish people understood that there are foundations out here who work with you, who don't believe you have to be perfect, who are not looking necessarily for perfection. They're looking for people who they believe can make a change, people who they believe can actually do the work, right? And they believe and they trust that more when they know you, when they see you. But a lot of us are so shy and so nervous to be seen. And you have to realize it's not about you. It's not about your nervousness. It's not about your shyness. It's about people out there who need the help and the services that your company is providing. So, in the end, that cannot get in the way of you reaching out to somebody new who will fund you eventually. Can I get an amen on that one? It's not about your shyness. It's about the people who actually need the money, who need the services you can provide as a result. So you second guessing yourself or feeling like I'm not enough, it's not enough. It's not enough. That can't be the reason why you decide not to reach out to somebody. That can't be the reason to decide why you decide not to go to a foundation's meeting, right? Or invite a foundation out to your organization. So, a huge missed opportunity is just relationships with grant funders. There are some who are closed in, who don't want to talk to you, who don't necessarily have that orientation where they want to help. There are a lot of them that do because they're all different. But the ones who are easier to be discovered, like their staff are on LinkedIn or all this kind of stuff, and they're talking a lot and they're sharing information and they're posting, they know they work for a foundation. They know they're going to get hit up. So they tend to be more helpful when they're more kind of outward facing. right? So ask them for advice. Ask them like what their priorities are. Is it a good alignment to work with their organization? Who else you should be talking to? Who else you might want to consider as a funder? You know, does this make sense, y'all? I hope it does. Okay. Let me talk about, is it okay if I list some comments? If you know somebody who needs this information, go ahead and tag them in this and share. Cheryl says the more you talk to everyone about what you do, the easier it gets. Very true. Cheryl had a question. Is it harder to get government funding opposed to private foundations? That's a really good question. I think the answer is it depends. There are some government contracts that are very easy to win simply because there are a lot of people who don't know about them and a lot of people not going after some of the money. So, some government funding is very easy to access and very easy to get. Now, it may be harder to maintain, it may be harder to apply for because there's a lot of red tape and there's a lot of paperwork and stuff like that. So it may be harder in that sense, but it just depends. There are some private foundations who have very simple processes. So they just want a 2-page proposal and your 501c3 letter, and that's it. And that may be easy for you to apply, right? But it may be harder to get their attention if they're smaller or you don't know them well, right? So it just depends, but I don't see a barrier with any of them. It's just they both serve their purpose and they serve their purposes in different ways. Federal funding or government funding rather can do things for you, and then private funding can do things for you. Government funding is a whole beast in itself. You got to have resources to maintain that because most government funding, is reimbursement based. So you're going to have to do some of the work and be reimbursed for it. A lot of private funding is upfront. So it just depends. Vic said your comment wasn't transitional. I figured it was. Yes. All right. Danger Aware said, our largest donor is our founders, but we recently won a grant that can only be described as serendipitous. Whoop, whoop. Can I get a clap for you? Clap, 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 clap. Where are the claps? Yes, for Danger Aware. Raise the roof. Yes. Okay, Darby, I'm not sure of your question because it got kind of cut off. I'm not sure if I understand your question, Darby. So can you rewrite it, please? Because I don't want to get it wrong. Cheryl said, last year I applied for a grant with 2 different banks that I'm a customer with, and I was turned down. Is it good to reapply with them again? Yes. And if you haven't had that conversation with them about, how you can improve or what they're looking for this year or what their priorities are this year, make sure you do it. Make sure you do it. How to find foundations and start. So there are so many ways to find foundations, but if you wanted to do it for free, I would just get a list of all, I say this all the time. I feel like I'll be repeating myself. Somebody could probably say this for me, but an easy way to start, grocery stores, utility companies, banks. Start there. And then your community foundation. Start there. You'll find a lot of foundations that way. Grocery stores, utility companies, banks, and your community foundation. Think about companies that are around for a long time that have a lot of assets. They got to have tax savings for those assets. So a lot of times they put them in foundations to save money on taxes. And so they have foundations that go alongside their work. Community foundations, where do you find it? Just Google. There's a community foundation locator on the National Council of Foundations website. But honestly, just Google your state name, the word community foundation, and it'll come up. Shauna said, how do we find this? Is it something you can look up called community foundations or just the foundations we know in our area? Okay, so I just answered that question. Yep, just Google it. There's a community foundation in just about every area. And there may be a community foundation that covers multiple areas that you serve, because a lot of times there are multiple ones per state. So if you live in like Florida or Texas, y'all got buku community foundations. All right. All right. Cheryl said community foundations have an email list that you can get on, and they give events you can go to, which is one way to get your name out there with them. That's right. That's right. Danger Aware said, I found the Central Valley Community Foundation just now. Oh, this is a good one. Kimberly said, learn from my mistake. Never text and ask from a major donor. Thank you, Kimberly, APP member, for being vulnerable and saying that. Yes. Please know that when you're asking for a significant amount of money from an individual, that it is not a one-time ask. It develops over time. There are usually several meetings that have to happen of you talking about what matters to them, what do they care about, what do they like to support, with you sharing information about where you are with your organization, what your plans are, how you're using money in the next phase of your organization. And there's often that negotiation is not the right word, but it's that back and forth. And you really do need to do major asks face to face. You really do. Or you need to have had face to face interactions with people before you decide to ask for a major amount of money. And I'm talking about in the thousands usually, which is why one way that nonprofits are making money, have been doing this for a while, is they'll have people who have access to a lot of resources host house parties. And they host house parties and invite friends that they know who have resources. And they ask those people directly in those house parties to give. They're one-on-one. There are face-to-face interactions that come with money. The most effective way to ask for money is through a direct ask, and mostly in person. Thank you for sharing that, Kim. I really appreciate that. All right. All right. So Vic said Central Valley Community Foundation in Fresno, California. California got buku community foundations as well. And Washington has a lot of foundations, but it's something about the tax savings. So that a lot of foundations tend to be headquartered in Washington State as well. But honestly, there are community foundations in every community in the country. The number of assets they have differ, right? And it just depends on the area. So the lesson is talk to your community foundation, because they know where the money exists in your community and they can direct you to the right place. And I didn't know this, but I learned that you can get money from a community foundation in another area. That a community foundation, look at me knocking my lamp over, a community foundation in California may fund you if they have a connection to the work you do in another state. So it's not always that they only fund in the local community. I didn't realize that, but that's true. So what was the biggest takeaway from the live today? I'm gonna round up, and then I'm gonna also go through and see if there are any questions I need to answer. I don't think so. Oh, there's one comment. Nonprofit must know their official letter of support and local and federal funding money goes towards your programs. I might not like politicians, but I think that means I'm in the room showing our work and demand funding. Amen. That's right. They work for you, whether you like them or not. Doesn't matter if you like them. They got to do their job. So if you're going to hold me accountable and make me pay my taxes and be checking up on me, then I'm going to check up on you and make sure you're doing your job, political official. It doesn't matter who you work with. Cheryl said, how do you do that? It's all on who you know and who you talk to. That was based on a relationship and a conversation. because I didn't even know that was possible, that a community foundation in another area. But it's because the person who was in charge of the money had a connection to the state. But it would not have been known unless that conversation was made. You understand what I'm saying? So I think one tangible thing that we can all walk away with today is how many new people can you connect to and can you meet each week? How many new people, how many new experiences, how many new environments can you expose yourself to in order to meet new people, to have those relationships, to build those connections so you can discover opportunities for your organization? I think that's the biggest takeaway. And that's the missed thing. That's the biggest missing thing of all of this when it comes to fundraising. People just don't understand how key and vital talking to people, learning about people, understanding people. They don't know how vital that is. They don't. They don't. All right. So to round up, things you're missing, peer-to-peer strategies. Go back so you can hear what I mean by that. Second thing, major donors, individuals. Third thing, relationships with grant funders. Right? Right. So my hope is that you walk away from this empowered with a sense of hope and a belief that you can do whatever it is next that you need to do for yourself and for your nonprofit. But most of all, take care of yourself, take care of your family as you're trying to take care of your community. Hey, Willie. Right? And so that's what I just want y'all to walk away with, that I just need you to take care of yourselves, honor yourselves, and come from a whole place when you're approaching your nonprofit. Don't come from a broken place, a place of lack. Come with with hope. Come with belief. A lot of people say abundance, but some people don't really know what that means. And it just means a sense of hope that things will be, that what you need will be and will come. And approach your work with that. So I answered this question before I leave from Darby. Someone asked me, do we believe in abortions? I mentioned we try to prevent by offering a plan for parenting single parents. So that's a great perspective. Just so as you are asking for money, understand what your values are, what your beliefs are, and what you will and won't do, and what you will and won't accept. So there are some people who won't give you money if you don't do certain things. There are some people who will give you money if you do certain things. But you need to decide for yourself what you are willing to do, what you believe, what your values are. Because everybody's values are different. What everybody wants to support is different. But you have to know for yourself and make sure that you're attracting the people who align with your values, the funding that aligns with what you're trying to do. Because you're not a silent partner in this. You're an active participant and partner in funding. So just because a donor has money doesn't mean they can dictate to you what to do. They can't. Now, a donor can say, I wanted to go to this program. Okay, and that way they can dictate. But if you find that a donor is dictating and micromanaging everything that you do, then that's an inappropriate relationship. So you got to decide for yourself what matters most. What are my values? What are important? And just know. And it's up to you. And if that funder or that donor doesn't want to support you, there's another one who will. Just remember that. Just remember that, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. Yes, Danger Aware for always reminding me. Click that like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Share. Thank you so much. I've been talking for an hour. I did not realize it, but I appreciate y'all. Hey, Tajma. I'll see y'all next Sunday. I'm going to have some of my coachees, the people who've done coaching with me, so you can hear directly from them about their experience with Boss in a Budget. Stay tuned, y'all. See you next week. Bye.